free internet comes advertisement for everybody who has money to make something pop up on the side of the screen for everything to search for.
I personally feel that the computer and my father being 109 when he was alive, when I brought a computer in his house and said that will run the world and take all your jobs. He is correct. They say pay online. I don't want to pay online.
Yeah.
I want to go to the post office and buy a stamp. I want the paper mill still working. I don't care how much paper costs. That's saving somebody's job.
nobody since then till now has talked about the wonderful things or what there is to do here. It's always the what was.
Yes.
Before I opened the lamppost in Ashland, I believe there's nothing to do in Ashland. Why would you go to Ashland? You might as well go to Huntington or Lexington. There's no shopping in Ashland. There's all kinds of stuff downtown Ashland.
Well,
And what is there, because we are economically depressed, and I think we are emotionally depressed because of that. But I think we need to try to rethink and say, well, what can we build up some pride in? Because if my generation runs away because we believe there's nothing here and there's no possibilities here, then there truly are no possibilities. So I think we need to say, okay, my grandmother's generation is gone, and that time era of America is never going to be here. But what can we do to make my people want to stay here? What can we do to bring that pride in? Because if there is no pride, then there is no community. And then why should I be here? Why should I stay? Why don't I just go to Lexington?
and I think that's a great point. We need to teach our kids to embrace it the same way we did.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid of embracing it, because we don't know what's going to be here.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm so glad that's why you're back here.
It's a completely
She's ready to go out of her mind because she cannot find a job well educated. And she's, Mom, I gotta get out of here. And I said, go, get out. But here's another problem. My daughter went to the bank. First of people to the bank that I would always bank with, they would give my mother, my dad, anything they wanted because they knew that he was a hard worker and so was she. I'm trying to help my daughter establish credit. They will not give her a loan. And it's not First of People. They say, I'm so sorry, but the government has cracked down on us. We cannot even help the people that live here that we've known for generations and that we've always had. They would not give me a loan. It's the first time I've ever been turned down in a 67.
Homeland Security has, I believe our government has gotten too big.
Yes,
And
it has.
I don't know if there's anything we can do to reverse that once you open doors. We can't close those doors, unfortunately. Because I've been with First People since I was 8 years old. Quarters in the savings account, earn that. And, I've experienced the same way. You gotta have this. I'm like, we're on a first name basis, and I went to school with you. Well, I know, but that doesn't
That
matter.
community,
Small things.
yeah, operating as a community has changed. The power has shifted from local. We've talked about the future and the concerns that we have, and it seems like we've talked about the concerns that we have, that we hear in our community, and family and friends have. And I think
I'm a book buyer, so I don't check out books, I buy books and that. But I told Jen, I'm embarrassed to say this was actually the first time I came to the library. So if it wasn't for this, I still would not have been to the library, so that, shame on me.
You'll probably come
But-
back, because now you know.
I want to go get my library card before we leave, because my grandmother would be embarrassed with me for not having it. But what can we, what can we do to we have to have a rally point, and we have to have that place to start that pride, and we have to have that connection. Just like what you were saying with the school, you had that, what can we do to make downtown great at that place? And then when we bring
What else?
people here,
Yeah, what are we proud of?
Right.
What do we have here that, this is one of those things.
destination places are slowly getting, it's all about the convenience of the one-stop Walmarts, the one-stop.
Part of what Colony was. In the cafe, I played music there, I did everything in the world. I couldn't help
Yeah, and you
make
did
that
great,
go.
too.
And there was people, and I went out of my way to tell them. And a lot of that was, there's no place to park. I had to park 2 blocks up the street to walk back
Oh,
there.
yeah.
But
Oh,
they'll walk
I'm
through
like,
the
yeah.
mall.
yeah, they'll walk
Yes,
in the
they
mall.
will, yes, they will, yes, they will.
Yeah.
They'll park over at Big Sandy's parking lot to go to the movie, you know,
But that's, I mean, that's a lot of, I mean, was not your fault.
so
It's just the mindset of people.
it's getting
The pride isn't there, the mindset in this generation. My dad, he worked at Army when it was Army. He worked there 38 years and he missed 5 days. I mean, that was pride. That was pride back then, because when I was a kid, your dad either worked at the mill, which was Armco, or on the railroad, or at National Oil. And those people were proud of those jobs, you know? And I've seen my dad, of course, you don't know it when you're a little kid, but when I think back, I've seen him get up and drag himself out of that old truck, sick with the flu or whatever, and drive to the mill, and you didn't miss the next one. Where is that?
My nephew that I inherited, he was coming to work at a job. And he said, where would I get a job? I said, McDonald's, I'm hiring, I'm not working at McDonald's. I said, well, why would you not work at McDonald's? So they don't pay $20 an hour, no, and God, I don't even make $20 an hour.
good luck to
Who do
find
you
that
think you
anymore.
are?
Yeah.
Who
good luck
do
finding
you
that.
think you are? It's the me generation. Where's
Well,
the
and part of
books?
that, and I have to
You don't
say,
make books on at night. I want that. Oh, but you want to make $20 an hour.
see, I think there has to be, as a son of education, the financial guidance that I got in high school, this was, and these are not the verbatim words, but this is what I walked away with. If you want to be a successful person, now that you're getting ready to graduate, the first thing you need to do is get college course. Second thing you need to do is get a car. Third thing you need to do is get your house. And when you're deciding what you want to do in college, you think about something that you like to do, and that's what you major in. And myself and many people that I went to school with have found that that was some of the worst advice. There was no practical living. I never sat down in high school and had a class saying, let's balance a checkbook. We're going to go through this semester and you're getting paid minimum wage and let's figure out. Never got that. I never got figure out how you want to live, find the job that makes that, and then decide if you like that job and you want to do that job, then you can do that. If not, because, you know, my dad, he didn't like working at National Oil, but it made the money that he wanted to live on to get to retirement, so now he can do the stuff that he wants to do, and he should deserve to do that. But that was his mind thinking, that was how he was trained. You figure out where you want to live, then you find the job that makes that. I don't know what they're doing in schools now, but I got nothing.
They're doing better. The kids
Are
are
they
exposed to
doing better?
financial literacy and a lot of the life story these teachers learn. They
Tell them
have
about some-
other things.
tell them.
Kids do at least have a wake up call. Is it that school now?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know I assist extension in some of the 4-H part of that financial literacy, but I know that, yeah, it's pretty much in every school.
Well,
So
then
many
I
times
want to
they're not
volunteer
teaching
for
in
that.
cursive writing.
I love it.
Oh, well that, you
Some
can,
are. You know, I have a
There's some
senior
things,
student that I wrote him a note. He said, what's that say? He said, senior in high school.
yeah,
And I said,
some of
what do you
that.
mean? I just
They
say
don't
read it.
teach cursive writing in elementary school now.
But I just
Some
said,
of
I
it's
just did a semester of student teaching
Okay.
at Russell. We do not teach them cursive writing, that's not a curriculum anymore.
but, okay, government again. I just sent my quarterlies in this morning and I had to sign everyone.
Right.
And then print everyone. But the government's not forcing them to teach
Well,
in
you
cursive
don't-
writing.
you don't have
Why
to do
is it
that.
on my
You
form
don't
that I
have-
have to sign it?
But see, that's going away, because when I have done some job applications and stuff through this third-party hiring agency, not in America, I had to sign all my forms.
Well, thank
So
God
that you sign saying, I am the person, and you put the little box, and it is signed.
Thank God the caveman
Yeah,
drew
I
on the
mean, you
cave.
don't have to do that.
Thank God the Egyptians drew on the cave. Thank God the prophets wrote on canvas. And thank God somebody wrote a book, because our children have some history. But guarantee in 50 years there won't be any history, because we don't even know how to write.
I teach
Our
my
computer
older
will
daughters
break
at
down
home
and
with
there won't be
evenings,
no history.
how to print, how to write their names.
That's what this morning. There's a, you know, a lot of people that
Well, the rich people want us to get stupid. That's what they want. So they can still have power. So, what do we do? Sit here
It
and
always
watch
comes,
God?
it always comes back to this.
Yeah. I think the main thing that I'm hearing
guy was from Canada, and he, in his talk, he has a book we're looking at. According to him, he makes $8,000 profit a year off of 2.5 acres of land. He has co-ops up there, and some of the restrictions are different from up there to here. But he was trying to get people, and mom and dad said there were a whole bunch of people in that class that were trying to pick up on that. And we're trying to figure out here. So Linda Heineman's been out to the property looking, Dr. Strange, you got Dr. Strange
I can do this in Greenuo County, but I can't do this in New York City.
It's my mentoring.
Mentoring, exactly.
Although that's hard to do that. I've asked a bunch of people if they want to come and help with my beehive.
Yeah,
So
well,
they're on their way.
I may have to say no to that one too.
Yeah.
But I'm
Now
gonna
that Brandon
invest
has
in 'em.
bees that's allergic to bees, there's something
And
wrong.
one more thing that I've heard since y'all here talking, and I know it's up too late, but this is something again that came to mind. We have groups like Lions Club, Rotary Club, and even the Veterans Associations. And I've shown Greenuo County for all my life. Now, I'd like to the rest of my life, but if they can't get volunteers they're gonna have a hard time getting volunteers. And so now, that's another thing, you gotta build a bench of generational that can carry on. I've talked to people in all those groups that said, we don't know how much longer we'll be able to sustain it. It's the same usual suspects, they're 70 years old, you know, and there's friends of my dad that are still doing this, and they're having a hard time getting volunteers, bringing up that other generation. That's another thing, the challenge that we're gonna have, how to incent these younger people to take their time, volunteer, to carry on these traditions, just like on Facebook, we can play our show. You know, because how many kids does that impact? A lot, about their walk around the grounds, whether even the beauty pageants, everything involved in all that. And people are having a hard time, and it's like that across the country, but I think that's something, talk about preservation of communities, we've got to talk about preserving and building volunteer bases.
That is a serious concern. Getting people, the things that are still happening, like old fashioned days and the fair and this growing Greenup group, the people that are making it happen are the ones that started it. It's an older generation, and they're the people, it's a very small group. You might have 2 or 3 people making things happen. What's going to happen when those 2 or 3 people aren't there?
I'm ready to get next master to the ground. Haven't been since my 3rd term. They keep asking me to run again because none of the young people will step up. And I'm like, girls, if you don't step up, it's going to dissolve when I retire and Ms. Lola and Ms. Burke, it's the same 3 old people doing everything.
You should be teaching someone, there should be people
They
standing in
don't
line
line up.
to come in behind you. That is.
They don't want to. They want to pay their dues and come to the class.
Somebody else needs to work.
And then leave. And it's really, even in my little studio, I've looked at how the facility Acton downtown is. And I said, let's take a Saturday. And all of us, well, I've got a ball game and I've got this and I've got that. And I'm like, okay, you can't take a River studio.
River Studio.
Can't get them involved. I don't know
What
what.
organization's sponsoring that? Cincinnati.
Whatever that is.
Me neither. I know what you're talking about, but
And the ones that did
And they look
volunteer
for
work,
partners.
I've got a little girl that's Gracie that teaches for me every day. You know, but they got a farm
I
out
think
there.
she came to dance spring and what,
Yeah, she teaches for me every day. The kids amazing, but how do you keep getting kids like that?
Yeah, they're out there. They are out there.
They are out
We
there.
just have
A lot of them
to.
are graceful.
Oh.
Yes. Graceful is still a good area. Still good, cool. This is
They invite me around, though, I say
Yeah.
something straight like it.
I can't say that to
Yeah, there are success stories. We don't want to
Okay,
ignore that.
And a lot of them can't get somewhere because their parents are impaired. You know, a lot of them transportation, there's a lot of people that can't just lay around.
And I'd like for you to think about the pictures that you saw, the old and the new. Think about what our community means to you. Think about your place in our community. Think about the future of our community and what that means to you. And to help you with that picture, as your eyes are closed and you're thinking about that, I'm going to share with you our state song that paints a picture of our state and our community and shares some feelings. about that longing for home. So as you listen, again, think about our community and our future. The sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the people are gay. The corn tops bright and the meadows in the bloom, while the birds make music all the day. The young folks roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by, hard times come a-knocking at the door, then my old Kentucky home, good night. Weep no more, my lady, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Okay. So did you take that little journey with me? Okay. So in that picture that you created in your mind, when you think about the future of rural communities, we know that we live in a rural community, and we're proud of that. We know what that means. So when you think about that and you think about the future, what is it that comes to mind? And that's a very open question. What is it that comes to mind when you think of the future of our rural community?
When you're defining rural community, are you talking about strictly incorporated towns like Greenuo, or, through this county, there were many communities that had their own identities. When there was less transportation than there is now, Lynn, Lowe, Sunshine, even Woodland and out in the county, those directions, they all had a school. They all had their churches. They had, many of them had industry and businesses, their own general stores and grocery stores and blacksmith shops, and who knows what else. And we lost those identities. We no longer have those. They're still churches. But the other things have gone like Greenuo has. When I was growing up in this town, we had 2 or 3 grocery stores, we had 3 car dealerships, we had 2 drug stores, we had 2 furniture stores, 2 department stores, and you didn't have to leave Greenuo for anything. And now, you go to Walmart, you go to the box store. So, in that respect, we've become a bedroom community, more or less, instead of really a true city with its own identity and completed itself.
We're a suburb.
Yep.
We are a suburb of Ashland. That's the reality of it. Ashland is where the majority of the business is done. Or if you live a little further north, you're a suburb of Portsmouth. That's if you have a lot of business to take care of. 9 times out of 10, that means you're leaving the county to go do it. And that's sad, and it breaks my heart. But, that's the reality of it. The business will flow to where the money is. And we don't have much here. You know that as well as anybody does.
It's true.
And I probably didn't realize the true state of things until I started working at the health department. And that really opens your eyes when you're dealing day to day with a population you didn't have a lot of contact with before. And I only now begin to realize, well, like you were saying, how far we have slipped from only 25, 30 years ago. And we have lost a lot of business out of this county.
That sense of community, like you were saying, a community is defined differently now. Well, how are we defining it? And we're not really, because we want to hear that from you. So there was a time when community was defined by that much smaller radius of where you live, but you actually had a community there because you had businesses and you had your churches that are the only thing that's probably still there, your schools. Your community is different now, but so in a way the community is bigger because everything is more spread out, but then again, the people are less connected to that local community.
Well, even most of the
Lost
schools
our
are
identity.
now.
Yeah, they have lost, yeah, because I know what you're talking about when you talk about Lynn, because I think about where Lynn's school was, and I think about that community.
I went to Lynn.
Yeah, but it's not defined that way anymore. What would you define Lynn by now?
Well, we've taken on our communities, like you talked about, that gentleman there said our communities way. We no longer have our local elementary schools, our local little leagues. We don't have our local sense of community feel. And this is, I'm sorry about anybody about being blatantly honest. I'm too blatantly honest sometimes. 18 years of my life, all I can figure out is how am I going to get out of this hole? It's how am I going to better myself and how am I going to get out of this hole? I didn't go very far. I just went more head with school, but I just quickly realized, how can I get back? And I realized that I love my community. I was ready to come back. And I came back, all pumped up with a college degree. There's nothing I can do with it.
How can I stay?
Yeah. Then I quickly realized if I want to stay, I'm going to get on the road. So now I travel 80% of the time on my job, and in order to come back and stay in my community. And so it's just we've lost that. People stopping in, checking on other children as they're playing ball. And I remember playing ball out at Lynn, and everybody and their brother was would stop in. You hear people working in the fields on the backside, and people stopping through, checking on you. Because everybody was my parents. I had several fathers. I had several mothers because they were all people that mom was at work and dad was in the field, and we were all just kind of take care of each other. But it's not that way anymore. People, you're just soon drive down the road because people move in, people move out, and quickly you don't know anybody that's moving in, and they don't want to get to know you.
That's it. We live in a different society in general, not just rurally. We don't make an effort to know our neighbors anymore. We actually live in fear of our neighbors. They might be operating a meth lab over there.
Or on
And
vendors
in this
list on
county,
the website.
that's odds are pretty good.
Well, it's funny, I guess you'd say emotional ties you have to certain things in your community. And even as an adult in my senior years, I saw as one of the last nails in the coffin of our town here, right where this building is sitting, when the Chevrolet garage went in. That was one of the last businesses. If Charlie Osborne ever goes out of business, that's it downtown. We got some insurance agencies, and the rest of them, we've got a
Law.
dentist and a bunch of lawyers. Going to the courthouse.
All the people you don't want to come see.
Isn't that true? Yeah. We were talking about that earlier today. Robin,
No
our
offense.
senator, Robin Webb was here. Yeah.
That's a nice one.
Well, it's true. We were talking about that earlier today. The fact that what our downtown is now compared to what our downtown used to be, and the reason that you come to our downtown. Now, when I live downtown, so I come here all the time, and I don't think like this, but it took me a while to realize that most people come to downtown for something negative because they've got to go to court, because they've got to pay a ticket, because they've got to renew their driver's license, which nobody really enjoys any of those things.
See that someone in jail.
This is somebody in jail.
Pay their taxes.
Pay your taxes. Those are the things that bring people to town. So when we think about why is it difficult to get a community involved in things downtown, whether they realize it or not, when they're coming to town, it's because they don't want to. So how do we, it's true, so how do we address that and make downtown more inviting and have other options and impact the feeling of enjoying our downtown?
Old Fashioned Days is a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
When they started Old Fashioned Days, it was by the Merchants Association, and it was to attract people to downtown Greenup where the merchants were located.
Mm-hmm.
So they could see the different things that they had to offer, from the dress shops to the drug stores to the department stores and furniture stores. And now, what business we have left in Greenup is up in Mountain Gates parking lot, the little shopping center. And, there is no downtown Greenup.
No, Charlie's is the only store.
Well, then you also, if you look at, if you go by Wikipedia, which we all, they go to Google and Wikipedia to find any information, we're listed, and this is where I come by, so I'm an agricultural person. We're listed as an agricultural community. Well, I work for Farm Bureau for the Federation, and, our agricultural community is an aging agricultural community. And so, we're listed as an agricultural community. In 25 years, because no young people are coming into the agricultural industry, where are we going to be? What's Wikipedia going to address us as then?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just where do we go after that? What's our next identity? We've already lost our steel industry, and we're holding on to our little bit of what Wikipedia calls our agriculture industry before houses take up and subdivisions take up our main cropland along the river bottoms. Where do we go from there?
Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking at is how did we get from where we used to be to where we are now, but how are we going to get to what's going to happen? Where are we going? And now is when you impact where we're going. Talking about going to college and coming back, how many of our youth go to college and are able to come back, even if they want to? If they want to or realize they want to later, they come back and do what?
Yeah, I know that was my thing. I came back from college and there was nothing to do, so I had to create my own thing. There was nothing for me really. So unless you have somebody, like us who really want to invest back into our community, they're going to move to Moorhead or Lexington and stay there.
And so often we get complacent because we come back and we better ourselves, we educate ourselves, where we get bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, or going to a professional field of some sort. We come back and we can't apply that. And so, not that it's a bad thing, but then we settle and we go to work for AK Steel. Not that that's a bad thing, but we have an exceptional talent that we either trained for or went to professional school for 4, 6, 8+ years, and the only place we can make any money is the steel mill. The choices are so narrow. Then when you have the other big employer with the Marathon Oil, they're not hiring anybody off the street anymore. They've made a dedication to the technical college that they're only going to hire people from that program. And so then again, it takes that, takes you away from that for those people who went away to UK, Moorhead, Bridger, Eastern, or whatever the case may be. And so it makes it really difficult because, at the end of the day, it brings people down because they almost feel like they settled, and so they lose the inhibition to give back, the inhibition to feel, needed, I guess you would say, or productive. That's just my opinion.
I think you said it best there earlier when you were talking about playing ball at Lynn. And I played for Danielton and played all my games over at the fairgrounds. Well, there was a sense of community. When we played a ball game, or when Danielton played Grays Branch, there was 300-400 people at that ball field. And I grew up, and everybody that grew up with me, we have a tie here, a sense of home that we want to reinvest. And that's what our kids don't have now. The ones that are going off to college, they don't have that tie here to come back and be entrepreneurs, to open up the small shop. You know, one more shop in downtown Greenup isn't going to get the traffic off 23. We need 10 more shops in Greenup to where they can come down and do all their shopping. But we need these youngsters that are going away to Lexington, Louisville, wherever, to come back with those degrees, that know-how. But we got to make their ties here first. If we don't have that tie like we used to, you know, we were all different schools back then, but we were Greenuo County, and we knew that. And when it come All-Star time, we were Greenuo County. We represented because we were proud of where we were from. You know, we wanted to come back here and do things. You know, and if I talk, you know, I'm trying to get a teaching degree now, but I want to teach here. I want to teach in Greenuo County or Russell or Raceland. I want that tie because this is home. These kids nowadays, my two, I've got an 8 and a 5-year-old. They don't have that tie because they don't have that small community that we once had. It's just out there somewhere. So they, you know, to them, you know, my 8-year-old, she thinks like an 18-year-old already, of course, but she's already thinking, well, you know, what am I going to do? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer, but what is there for me here? She's already thinking because she doesn't have that tie. She doesn't have the memories that we have. When my grandpa used to walk me across the tracks and we'd sit at docks down here and have a soda at the drugstore. Or I'd go to Uncle Howie Van Hoose's store and sit in there with him and just listen to him talk to everybody that come in. We don't have that now because there's no more ties here. We got to tie those kids back in a small community. And I know why Greenuo County consolidated. I understand that. But we lost the Downtons, the Old Towns, the Lynn's. We lost that tie. You know, now they're shipped from Lynn to Wortland Elementary or McHale Elementary, whichever end they go to now. But that's not home now. That's just where I get bused to.
Yeah.
You know?
That's not their community.
That's not their community. Like, you know, we had a sense of pride. You know, Danielton was one of the oldest schools in Greenuo County. My father went there to grade school, and I went there to grade school. And now it's a junkyard. So there's no more pride there. Why should these kids stay in Greenuo County? We got to get them involved and pull them in and have them, you know, a program where they can learn how to do what you do, Andy. Have them, like I said earlier in the first meeting, have them with the farmers to let them, you know, a program where they can learn how to farm that they can't do in New York City or New Jersey or wherever. We got to make them feel like this is home and this is where I want to be before they will invest in it.
You have to start by getting the kids out of the house.
Exactly.
They're out of the world right now is through the computer, the television,
Right.
the video games.
That's it.
Yeah.
Our kids are not being raised with any sense of local community. The only community they have is on social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's community, and it is a global community. You know, their mind is not focused on our area at all. There's, you know, and I'm not just talking about small children. You know, everybody up to about my age. You know, the world is happening on the internet, and so trying to gear things back towards a local community, a face-to-face community, that's becoming tougher and tougher to convince people that that's needed, because you know, we are becoming an isolationist community, society.
Social skills and interpersonal.
Well, there is no, you know, social skills are, you know, deemed, you know, old-fashioned. You know, the ability to hold a conversation intelligently with people. That's old-fashioned. You
Talk to each other like this, but you can cuss them out on the internet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's like the lady said in the first meeting when she had to dance.
Yeah.
The girl, there was her dance girls were there and 3 or 4 boys, and they were scared to talk to each other. They literally, that's what she said. They were afraid.
Because they didn't know how.
Yeah.
They truly didn't know how. And you know, there are things that are going on that create those opportunities, but it's very, very, very hard to get people to participate. For example, there is a Growing Greenup group here in town. Gary's part of that, and we meet at his business, and there's a handful of people that are trying to do some things to get people together. There's flyers on the table, so there's a commercial for you. We'll take one with you. But third Thursday of every month, just springtime, so it's short, there's some activities, free, open to the public, family-friendly, downtown Greenup. And, you know, there's food available, there's things for kids, there's, you know, different things. But to get people to come and participate, it's very hard to do. And marketing anything is very hard to do because used to, you know, there was a time when you put something in the paper, everybody knew about it because everybody read the paper. It's not like that. And social media is wonderful for marketing, but not everybody that sees it is going to come because there's going to be people see what you post that live on the other side of the world, which is fine, but the people that see it that live 2 minutes away don't go. So what do you do about that? You know, how do you address that? You know, you can create an opportunity in a community for people to experience these things we say they need, but how do you get them to do it? I don't know. You know, I don't know. But if we create that community pride, that our local culture is important, you know, that if you learn about farming and why are we listed as an agricultural community? You know, well, we want our kids to know our history, whether they decide to be farmers or not. They still need to know that local cultural heritage is important, that it brought us here, that whatever your interests are awesome. Follow them. That's wonderful. But your roots still came from somewhere, you know, that the ingenuity that these local people have, the dedication that our local people have, that is an important part of our cultural heritage. So how do we integrate that into educating not just our youth, but our adults? Because we have adults in their own worlds that don't participate in their communities. I think, you know, is that a concern, Brenda? What do we do about that?
I think reaching the adults is really part of our main issue because even though we simply recognize that we are not providing some things for our youth now and after they go to college to come back to, we're not really embracing a culture where they will feel welcome. You know, we want them to embrace our culture, which is understandable, but we have to reciprocate. We have to embrace theirs. So if we're going to try to get them to come to events, we have to have music and bands and groups that they gravitate toward. Right. We can say, oh, we don't want that kind of music here. If that's what they like and we're trying to attract them or we're trying to welcome them, we have to embrace some of that. We have to have some loud noise sometimes. We have to have places where they can dance, even though we don't like that kind of dancing. You know what I mean? Surely we're not going to just let them run wild. There have to be some limitations, but I think there has to be a little bit more give and take and cultural awareness between the different age groups in order to really welcome everyone and to give them something that they feel like they can come back and be themselves and not have to pretend, you know, until the real stuff happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a great point because if we plan everything for ourselves, it's not just ourselves that that we have to think of. You know, it's who is the audience that we want to be a part of something, and think about that. There is a program that I was just learning about today with. I told you about SEDIC, Community Economic Development Initiative of Kentucky. That's why they call it SEDIC because that's a lot of words. But there is a program that they've been doing across the state, and I'd like them to do in Grant. But it's called YELP, another acronym. and I don't even know exactly what it stands for, but it is about addressing youth and their interests and their local community. How do they see their local community? What kind of interests do they have? Do they feel like the adults in their community listen to them? Do they plan to go away to college and stay away? Do they want to come back? Do they know about what kind of jobs are available for them in their community? And do they know how to prepare for that, if that's what they want to do? It's kind of like what we're doing, but it's based on the target audience is youth and listening to them.
I think that's a great idea because, when I was young, 25, I was technically, I guess you'd say, grown adult, at college. I served on a couple boards, my opinions didn't really matter, which is okay. They would blow it off. I returned to those 3 years later in the position that I am in now. I don't know whether you say professional job, whatever and it's almost like my opinion mattered at that point in time. But my
You had to
opinion,
prove yourself first.
my opinion didn't matter whenever I was, working at the hospital as a maintenance man. And it's like, okay, well, I cover 12 different counties now, 3 years later, then your opinion matters. So I think it's allowing the youth to express their ideas and feel embraced and give them faith that their opinion matters will go a whole long ways. And how, I know I leave a lot of putting the questions, but how do we change that from, to give them empowerment? Because as a youth, this generation, if they don't feel empowered, they don't feel the need to participate. Because whenever when we do youth programs, if we're really structured and we tell them that we're going to go on this tour, we're going to do this tour, we're going to do this workshop, they don't sign up for anything. They want to do sign up for lethargic. But then we throw out and go, all right, guys, we're going to go here, we're going to go here, we're going to go here. Pick one. They love it. They feel empowered. Then they feel most of them up. But it's just their freedom to choose and the freedom to express themselves is amazing.
So going with that, instead of working against that,
and it's kind of,
see what works.
you hate to say, how do you manipulate that? Because, but how do you, that's
There has to be
persuasion.
direction. There has to be direction for it.
Yeah.
So the children don't really have
The knowledge
basis of experience or education to start the thing from scratch. You have to structure.
I hate to use the word manipulate, but how do you get them to do what you want?
Well, you're not manipulating how they think. You're simply manipulating the situation
Or their actions.
in order to gain more interaction with them.
Providing direction.
Yeah.
And that's
That's the same thing we do in the
Yeah, that's okay.
classroom. It's called directive learning, the phrase that we actually use. We're letting them choose, here's this way, some math problems, that, everybody knows the new math that we do now. But we give them 4 different ways to do the same math problem and let them choose the direction that they want to go in and what seems to come more natural for them. And they seem more cooperative because, okay, now this teacher's not standing there telling me that 3 plus 2 is 5, but I get to choose which way I come up with 5. And that could be, like he's saying there, it's opening up and letting these students choose a path that they come with. I agree 100%. If they think they're running the community, they could get way more involved. And we structure and let them think that they're running the community with some guidance. Could be an excellent way to get them involved.
Better than no involvement at all,
Exactly.
and apathy. That's worse.
That's our current mindset.
Yeah.
Well, where are the kids during the day? Most of them. They're at school. They're at school. Yeah, kindergarten on up, they're at school. And, I know that teachers have a lot on them. I don't know how to be a teacher. It's got to be extremely difficult. But they've got so much on. But these ideas that people want the community to have, somehow, it's got to be through the school system. there's got to be some adults that get together and have ideas, but it's got to be presented to the kids and work. It would take years, but you got to start sometime. But you're not going to say, well, come tonight, 7 o'clock to church. It's not going to happen.
No.
Unless there are some that go to youth group a lot and they're very involved in their church. And that's wonderful. But you're talking about the community. And the only way to reach them is through school. So how could you do that? I don't know, but I'm just saying,
That
where they are.
leadership program of Greenuo
Yes,
County.
there are wonderful youth leadership.
I was a part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's probably 75% of the reason I came back. Because I was part of that program and I saw the opportunities and I wanted to invest back into my community. But like George was saying, we come back after we get back from college, but we're still viewed as these kids. I don't know if that's kind of what you were getting at, but
Yeah, and, that, like Linda, whenever, my wife, we got together, we got married, she had an opportunity to move on and move to another county. And the first thing I said is, I'm invested in this community. I have farming responsibilities, I have family responsibilities. My key word was I was invested. I can't leave. And so in my mind, I knew I could not leave, no matter how good the offer was. I couldn't leave because I was invested emotionally, physically, and financially. And how do we get, most kids don't feel that, because if you go out to, like, we were out talking to Tommy Crump out of Arvada Elementary a couple years ago. We was doing an educational program. A bunch of kindergartners came through. Their starting kindergartners came through. They were high-fiving. They were fist-bumping. They were happy to be there. But Tommy Crump goes, you wouldn't believe that 18 out of those 30s are being raised by the grandparents. Their parents are gone because substance issues, emotional issues, or just can't deal with society or the world itself. And that is another issue with us, is that our potential leaders are, where's their mind? Because they can't deal with the day, they can't get out of bed, or something other than, being an adult and taking care of business. And, that's, okay, I'm on a tangent, but.
Well, there is a lot of breakdowns along those lines in our community. There is.
I have heard it referred to as the missing generation.
Yeah.
They are missing. They're not in society. Like I said, their kids are being raised by grandparents, and that is scary how often that's happening. I see that all the time. And so, in some of the trainings we've had, I have heard it referred to as, we have a missing generation.
And so
Yeah.
this generation being that way, they're not going to feel, and they have no investment, they have no, responsibility. And so when it comes time to get up and go, well, shoot, let's pack our bags and put on our backpack, and let's hike the Appalachian Mountains, and let's go to California, and they have no emotional tie. So whenever they're done with the school system, they're free. They have no right, they have no reason beyond that. And if you have emotional scars like that, why would you come back?
So would you say that is a cause
I think that's a cause.
of a breakdown in our community?
Got to be a contributing factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think another part of it is kind of built in what you were saying. A lot of people who are from here, they do have a very strong vested interest, but it seems like they assume that the people who aren't from here don't have a vested interest. And what I see is that a lot of the people who come from outside have a hard time getting in. I mean, we might, you would be nice to say hi, you might tell us about certain things, but when it comes to actually supporting a business, if they started a business, it seems like they don't get as much support as people tend to support their friends that they've been knowing since they were little kids. And that's understandable. They want to support their friends they grew up with. So some of these new people and new businesses and new ideas and new projects kind of don't get the support because they're always supporting the ones that they know.
When people do come into a community as a business person or a doctor, lawyer, what have you, it's upon them to get involved in the community. I mean, churches, civic organizations, community meetings, the other old-fashioned days, the Thursday events that are being held, they've got to get out and meet the bush, to meet the people and say, yes, I am interested in this community, I am here now, and people will accept them and accept that. But it is on them when they come in. I mean, we're not gonna rush out because we have people that we know and use and participate
I agree
with.
with that, but I've seen lots of people who do, I know I'm one of them. And will tell you, I'm usually around supporting all kinds of.
Well, I think years ago, my brother's a chiropractor, and of course, we grew up in this town. We moved to North Carolina to a small town down there. And to his credit, he and his family joined the church. He joined the JCs and was next year he was the president and was the leader and became a leader in the community through his own efforts. And that's people have to do that if they want to become them, because we are cliquish. There's no doubt about it.
I'll agree with that.
It
People
comes
wanna
back to
know,
what
who
you
are
said,
you?
investing. You have
Yeah.
to invest in your community.
Yeah, you do, and that is a responsibility. And we want the people that grew up here to feel that same responsibility. It is important in this community. People want to know who you are. People want to know who your people are. They want to know, your name's Heineman. Okay, so tell me which Heineman.
I'm on this
They
side.
want to know.
On this side.
He did bootlegging.
Like I said, I'm on this side. I can see him from that side, but I'm on this side.
James, you remember James Stewart?
Yep.
Okay, well, that was his greeting when he met somebody new. The very first phrase out of his mouth every time was, okay, who are your people?
Yeah,
You want to know who your people were. Yeah.
yeah.
So you
Because
can
it
make a little
matters.
tie with who you are and where you come from.
Yeah, that is a part of this community. Because most of the people have that story to tell you. But it doesn't mean that we will not accept you if you don't have that story, but they want to know. Yeah. And if you talk long enough, you can usually figure out where the connections are, if they are there. But, and I think that's a nice thing about it. People do know, and people want to know, but people are also able to be accepting. And I think that's a nice thing about our community. So what other, are there any other issues, concerns, problems on that kind of list that we should identify as a concern in our community?
This community here is the victim of inertia. I mean, things are going out, not coming in. And what we have lost is never coming back.
Not the same way.
We're not going to have the downtown that we had and the 3-car dealerships, 2 drugstores, furniture stores, department stores here in what used to be the CBD, the Central Business District. Our Central Business District is up there in Applegate Shopping Center. And
International and enforcement.
like I said, it's inertia. It's going that way. I don't think it's any way to reverse that.
So if we know we can't get back what we once had, then what is our future? What can we impact and where are we going?
I think it's just a matter of creating a new vision. I think we have a tendency to want to recreate our past. We remember our childhood with fondness. We always think in terms of how things were as they were the good old days. That's when I was growing up. We had Leslie's drugstore down here and stop in for a milkshake and a sandwich. Stuff like that. With a lot of nostalgia. And when we think about, let's bring people back into downtown, I think we get caught in the trap of just trying to recreate what we grew up with. And I think that's a mistake. I think you're right. The inertia is going the other way. So in order to bring people back in to build a community here, I think we have to pretty much not totally scrap our past, obviously not, but look at a new way of applying it. You know, kind of blend it with some new ideas. Yeah. Yeah. And we need to accept some new thoughts and new ideas. We have to.
Yeah. I think people are afraid of change. Change is scary. The unknown is scary. We talked earlier today about how do we honor our past, honor our heritage, while being progressive. Is it possible to do that? And that's hard, because how do we see it? You know, if we want to see our future as what it used to look like, we're going to have problems, because we can't make that happen.
Well, it's going to have to identify some needs. Now, I think this building here was a great start.
Absolutely.
And something to, a focal point perhaps, to build upon. But what are the needs of the community in order to serve the people here and to keep the people?
Yeah, we have to identify them, and then figure out how do we meet them, how do we build those connectors, how can we be progressive and still be who we are. And I think that's a big question. That's hard, but I think to address that, we have to have a community of people that are willing to communicate, willing to participate, instead of just staying in and letting it, whatever happens, happen. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Because if you don't feel like you have any control, well, for example, this building. Before this building was built, I wasn't on the board. So this is a secondhand story, but still I've heard it told that there were people that wanted to see the new library built out on 23rd. And there were people that said, no, the library is a part of our community and the downtown is important. So it took a group of people to get through that decision-making process. And we see that we have this beautiful library that is still a part of our downtown. And I'll tell you, the next thing that's going to happen in our community is our courthouse. Senator Webb was here today. We were talking about that. That's not something that's like about to happen, but when we think about our future, we are going to need a new courthouse. Greenup has been on the list for a new courthouse. And Robin said today that there will be discussion about where it goes. You look at other counties. There are other counties that have built new courthouses outside their downtown areas. Why did that happen? It happened because there was not a group of downtown people that were willing to say, this is important, this is a part of our community, and this is what we want to have.
I think we would have the support of every law office in town
I would think
for
so.
keeping it down.
I would think so, Paul.
I think that would be
Yeah,
better.
and I'm
That's a
not
resource we can
creating
grab.
an issue, but I mean, it was brought up by someone who knows what she's talking about. And she is looking into the future as, how's that going to go down? Because this is what has happened in other communities. So do we have the strength here in our community?
You drive up 23 past Louisa, and you see that big, beautiful judicial center, or whatever they call it, sitting outside. Go to Vansburg, and Vansburg's Main Street is about half as wide as ours. Buddy, that sucker's sitting right in the middle of downtown. You can't get to it, but it's there.
That's right. That's right. Well, and that is the strength of a community. What is important to the community and who is going to voice what's important to the community. That's how those decisions get made.
And it's funny because I travel a lot of the areas, and you get down into southern Kentucky, and those little communities, every single new port, I mean, you're talking about Camden, Stanton, West Liberty, Frenchburg, all those, everything's right downtown. Of course, they have that, with them being in the mountains, they have the privilege, they have nowhere to go. So they have to stay there. And that's, in essence, when we're left no option, everybody's for it. But when there's options, there's always going to be, like you said, different opinions, and there's going to be people that says, no, it's going to stay here. But then whenever you get to that point, where do we go down here? Because whenever they come in, they're gonna wanna connect to the new annex. They're gonna wanna pull through detention drop-off for inmates. They're gonna want all this stuff, and it's, okay, and you just sit there and go, where are we going?
Yeah, how do we make that happen?
How do we make that happen?
Yeah.
And who's gonna give something up to make that happen?
Mm-hmm. And so that kind of brings us to the next thing to discuss is what are the things that are important about our community that we want to make sure that we hold on to. We know that there are concerns, we know there's issues, we know there are problems in our community, we know that. But as when we think about being progressive and we think about the future, change is inevitable. There are things that should change. But what are the things that are so important to our community, that define our community, that shouldn't change? And this is your opinion. Your opinion. What, for example, if we're going to look at our downtown area and say, can we build a new building? Is there a building that would have to come down? That would be tough, right?
Yes.
So
That was the first thing in my mind.
I know, see, so
What do you tear down?
how do you be progressive and be willing for change to happen, yet be able to hold on to what is important? There's a hierarchy of decision making there. So how do you address that as a community? How do you want the people that represent our community to address that? You figure those things out before you go into that decision-making process. So what are those things? And I don't just mean things like buildings. I mean things like just how do we describe our community? It's important. The people that agreed for our local schools to get consolidated, maybe it had to happen, and maybe it had to happen, and they had to give that up. But if that were held sacred for those communities, maybe it wouldn't have happened. And then what would be different?
What was the rationale for this consolidation? We'll be able to beat Russell and Ashland. And we still can't beat Russell.
It didn't work, did it? Yeah.
The first thing that you really would have to identify is your identity. How does Greenup, as a rural community, how do we identify ourselves? And I wonder sometimes if we have lost our identity. Because downtown people here, I live in town here, I don't feel like I'm part of an agricultural society. I really don't.
Well, it's not the way you live daily. It's
No.
not the way I live
There's,
daily.
there's no farms around
it
me.
isn't.
I don't see farming happening on a daily basis. If I want to see farming, these days I can drive miles out into the county to find an active farm.
No doors to
See,
that.
Yeah.
See, then I call myself sustainable, because 3 out of 4 meals, or we have 4 meals, but 3 to 4 meals we have a week, the whole meal, besides the roll and the whatever, comes from the farm. Whether it be the meat, the corn, the beans, just whatever you call it, and we're sustainable. And so that's what I call myself, is sustainable. But it's so funny is you go back to the education. We do a program for 4th grade kids every September, and they have no idea sustainability, and they have no idea about providing, and everybody has their own opinions, and I respect everybody's opinion. Is we harvest our own livestock, put it in the freezer, harvest our own vegetables. Then we also harvest wild game, and it's just a part of our lifestyle. It's been a part of my heritage from past, and it'll part of our future with my son. But the kids today, the sustainability, they don't understand it. They don't, unless it comes from Google and the internet, like we talked before. It's just hard to get past that. And so I don't even think they could, those 4th graders 6 years ago ask them today, they probably still couldn't identify what they were. A gamer or something like that, they could probably identify themselves like that, level 45 of Warcraft or whatever.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. And we wouldn't
Guinea
understand.
animals cow, they don't know where they'll come
Yeah.
from.
Right, right. Well, I think that example is something that is part of our identity in this community, is that family learning. That we do have, there are skills in your family, George, that you have learned from your family that you are going to pass down in your family.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm probably gonna get divorced, so the way they taught me, not the way you picked us.
Don't tell the ag agent the extension on me. That's his wife. But that is a part of our community. I think that's something that we would not want to lose. That's something that's important in my family. There are skills that my children have learned from my dad. There are things, you think about the Garvins and the Literals that we were listening to their CD. That learning and passing on a skill in a family, that's important. That's a part of our community. That's something that we should honor, that changes that are made in our community should not touch that. I think that is kind of on the sacred list.
And that's something that our schools are doing more of, and in fact, there's a national drive to make our students more career and college ready. So it's not just preparing for college, but also so that they can get a skill, so if they do choose that that's not for them, they can learn some subset of skills that they can still make it. But part of the problem, I think, in terms of people wanting to make changes in us, because we do need more fresh vegetables, we do need those things in our communities that grown to help keep that nutrition in our families and in our areas. Because we're paying so much for our hospital bills and so much for pollution and so many other costs that we could be using that money to help build up a better building or to bring more businesses in that area.
That's interesting. And because everything's connected, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, there's ties. There's ties from our families to our businesses to our government, and how things are run. There are ties.
May I ask a question?
Yes. I don't have any answers, but sure.
Well, you got the answer to this. These meetings have been held in 3 communities.
Yes.
How many city councilmen, county commissioners, mayors, and we only have one judge executive, and
Right.
judge executives have attended these
Right.
meetings?
I can't answer that question. In South Shore, the mayor came to the meeting and was a wonderful part, an asset in the discussion, and it was very interesting. All of those people were invited and were aware. All those people are very busy, and we don't have them all here. Our judge executive was going to be here this afternoon, but wasn't, and I don't know why, because he was planning to be here, and usually is, and is usually very supportive, and that's true. But yeah, those are our policymakers that need to hear from the community and be a part of these discussions, and nobody's beating down the doors to come here and tell us what they think. And that's true. And to me, that's a concern. That's a
Very
concern.
much so.
Because we need, and that just goes back to that community involvement. Are we involved in our community, or are we just kind of in our own little path doing what we do? How do we see our connectors?
So your answer to my question, out of over 20 potential people, but the people I named, one showed up.
Yes. Yes.
That's another
That is,
item that's very much concerns me as a citizen, and
Yep.
the fact that these are the people that are going to have input into what's built in town and the direction our communities and our counties are taking, but they're still doing it from their individual council meetings and
yes.
without the, okay, that answers my question.
Yes, that is true, that is true. This afternoon, a representative from our sheriff's department and our state senator working this afternoon, and the mayor of South Shore. Yes.
I should keep my mouth shut.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
kind of,
we're starting to step on politics.
Yeah, politics now.
that was just a question
Just
about
let me
that.
in every situation.
That's true.
It's funny, those are the same people who come, I believe, during the, fighting addiction in Greenuo County. Those three officers are very supportive.
Really? Yes. Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
And I mean,
And I have
just noticed that.
Really? Okay. That is interesting. It is. So we talked about a concern and a problem when we identified the lost generation, drug problems as being a cause. Are there other things that you would say would be a cause of these concerns that we have for the future? Is there anything else about our community, lack of
I think
participation?
we have to be united. Regardless of your stance on the alcohol vote within the county, yay or nay, it don't matter. But we as a county voted it down. And then 6 months later, you have one end of the county voting yes. And so what message does that show that, okay, in Russell, they as a community have the right to override what the community as a whole vote. Does that make any sense?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Russell was a part of Greenuo County.
Yeah,
They
Russell.
shouldn't have tried to do their own separate.
Their own vote.
Exactly,
That's county,
the city vote took precedence over the county.
Over the county.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And I think that may have undermined the county as a whole. Whenever, the city can step out and say, doesn't matter what you guys think, we're going to hold our own.
Well, as a county, we have been a divided county for generations. If you consider South Shore and the north part, as opposed to Bellefonte, Russell, Raceland, Portland, down there is a huge divide that we're sitting in the middle of right here, okay? It is a rare occasion that I find people who are from, and by from, I mean generations, their families are from South Shore or from the southern part of the county, that actually get along at all. There is tension there. There's friction there. It has been for a very long time. So, as far as united, I agree, that would be the best thing for this county, and it's probably one of the biggest hurdles for this county, is to get both ends of this county working in the same direction. I think that's a tough one.
That's one reason that I scheduled these discussion meetings across the county, because if we held them just in one place, we wouldn't have people from the other ends of the county.
They wouldn't come.
I went to South Shore because I knew that's the only way I could hear from South Shore.
That's right.
And we went into Flatwoods because that's the only way to hear from that group of people. Our county is geographically laid out that way, but our county does function that way. That we do have individual community centers in this county. We do. But we also talked about how important it is to have the strength of a smaller community center. So
History.
there's both sides of that.
History is what's caused that. Like folks down around South Shore, they all made their livings, the ones that weren't farmers, in the brickyards or the steel mills of Portsmouth. And in that respect, they became isolated there. Same way up the river. There's Armco, the refinery, and the steel mills and iron. And here we sat as a county seat, and that's what we did. We were the county seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
That's-
why our main business in town is lawyers.
Right,
Still
because that's why you come to town,
That's
to
it.
pay your taxes, and so, yeah,
That
that's
may
what
well
we do
be
in
our
Greenup.
identity right there.
Well,
That's why I'm wondering, would we want to invest right now in a courthouse where that just further perpetuates that, line of thinking? Or should we use that to build up other things first? And then once we get that traffic going here, and then if you want to build that up, I'm not sure why we want to build that up when this may be a big distraction from people coming down here to build it.
Yeah, and that's a good question, because the people that come to the courthouse, do they invest their time and money in what is around? Is it because they don't want to, or is it because it's not here? If we have something, we've had some businesses try to start up, a shop or a cafe or restaurant, but the traffic in Greenup has not supported that.
See, we're a community, we're a culture of convenience. We've opened up a clerk's branch in South Shore. We've opened up a health department clinic in South Shore. We've opened up, a clerk's office in Flatwoods. So they can accommodate their needs up there, so you automatically lose X amount, 45%, 40% of your traffic, but because they have no reason to come down here now. Because they can take care of it, Flatwoods, they can take care of it in South Shore. And I understand that's convenience. I mean, from here to South Shore is 15 miles. 15 miles this way, 15 miles back, $30, or 30 miles, it's $8 worth of gas. I understand that, but then you take away from, Charlie's or this Second Charm store down here, or wherever the case may be, so.
I'd like to suggest maybe we have, just like we have old fashioned things, maybe we have a support your downtown business day, multiple times a year, not just one time. And maybe try to find some of the bigger businesses that might make some donations to help to make that worthwhile, like maybe some gas cards or something, and people come with a purchase, or just somewhere maybe parking, some benefits that may be provided by the bigger businesses to get you to help support some of these small ones in here. And then once people start coming, they might say, oh, I didn't realize they have that, oh, I didn't realize, and they might start coming a little bit more. But we're such creatures of habit. It is so easy to get stuck into that one-stop shopping of going to Walmart. And I started a business, and I started supporting some of the smaller businesses. I realized how hard it was. And it made me realize, too, that Walmart didn't have the best prices in town. Some of these stores that I was just riding right past had some better prices than Walmart. But you don't find out if you just have it going there, only got a little time, I'm not going to go here, as opposed to going here and taking a chance if they're not having it. So you need something at least get yourself into some of these stores to see what they do have, so you can know, I can go here to get this, I can go here to get that, and if I can't find it, I'll go to some of these other stores. So.
Yeah, and when it becomes important to you to support those people, because the business is the people.
Exactly.
And it means more.
Whenever you left it, I cut my trips to downtown down a half.
Yeah.
That was a stable downtown for years. Being such mistakes.
That's true. Well, I want to keep you for a few more minutes. If we were able, I guess in a perfect world, if we were able to address some of these things and make a difference that you would want to see. Do you want to see the county more united as a whole? We've said that. Or do you feel like it is important for our smaller communities to pull together and feel that community pride? Maybe we want that to happen and grow stronger in South Shore. Or maybe we want that to happen and grow stronger here in Greenup and then encourage that in the Russell area. Do we have to choose? Or I don't know, but those are two things that we kind of talked about, but that's not the same thing. Do you think it's important to see more businesses in downtown Greenup? What would that impact? What would that do? Is that the future that we want for Greenup? Or do we think Greenup just needs to be more spread out and kind of give it to the lawyers? I don't know. I mean, what are we? what is the future that you envision for our county? And if we were able to impact some of these things, where would that take us? I mean, that's, again, we started out using our imaginations. Where should we go from here?
Well, I'm torn, okay?
That's hard.
I gotta tell you, I am torn between two schools of thought. There's one side of me that thinks, yes, I would like to see businesses flourish in town in Greenup, all right? But I walk in town in Greenup a lot, and I know that the more business that there is in Greenup, the busier it's gonna get in town. And it's not gonna be a sleepy, quiet little town anymore. And I would miss that. I'll be honest with you, I would miss that. But the other side of it is, I would really like to see more business in Greenup, you know? So I'm torn between these two things. I would love to see more business in Greenup, very much so. I would like to see a lot more business here in town. At the same time, I like living in a quiet little town, you know? It's two sides of that same coin, and you know, I'm torn.
I understand what you're saying, because a lot of people like Greenup because it is quiet and slow. But Greenup is not the same Greenup that it was when I was a little kid. I used to know everybody going by. I don't anymore. I mean, it's not like that anymore.
No.
It's not.
Well, we talked about that. We don't know our neighbors. We don't.
Not like it once was. What do you think, Ian?
I mean, just having a business downtown, I would love to see more business coming into downtown, and just in the profession that I'm in, to be able to help the disabled community to be a part of this community and to invest in the downtown. So I think I would like to see more business downtown and just a more vibrant. But I'm thinking back, years past, it would be great just to let the kids run around town without worries or anything like that. But I don't know if that's really possible these days. The state that our community is in right
Well,
now.
business growth tends to happen where the traffic is. And for Greenup, it's US 23. So any real serious growth that's going to happen is probably not going to happen downtown unless we find a way to direct more traffic downtown. Create some reason for people to be downtown.
Positive reason,
Now
right?
you're talking
Exactly.
chicken and the egg.
Exactly.
Right.
That's true. One has to precede the other, and it's kind of a way of, if we find a way to foster both at the same time, kind of bring them up together.
We have a merchants association. What do they want? What are they doing?
Yeah, who is on?
I don't know, but we have one.
Yeah.
They're the one, they meet and they plan, as far as I can tell, the only thing they do is plan Old Fashioned Days.
Well, the Merchants Association no longer actually plans Old Fashioned Days. There is an Old Fashioned Days committee, and there might be a couple of members that would cross over with that merchants group, but it's not the connection that it once was.
Well, that's because it's not a showcase for business like it once was.
That's true.
It's
That's true. It's not.
the purpose of Old Fashioned Days has changed.
That's true.
It's not what it was.
Yeah, people come in and experience Old Fashioned Days for Old Fashioned Days, not really to go into those businesses. Yeah,
I
it's-
can't,
'cause
for
Greenup's
Old
different.
Fashioned Days, I cannot pull people into our building.
Really.
Yeah, they will not come into the building.
Do they bring stuff out? Do
Yeah.
they set up tables out?
Yeah, we should have to set up,
That's the only way.
Yeah, but we're in the old Lebanon store.
You're fighting
To bring
all-
people in to eat.
You're fighting
People
on
don't
the
come to go into
professional
those businesses.
Yeah, yes, sir.
festival.
Exactly.
They sell the same Chinese plastic junk at every single festival that comes and goes.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. And the Old Fashioned Days Committee has addressed that. How can we encourage more people, more artisans, more crafters, more of that local?
More education, and you talk about the kids and teaching them the heritage. They're not getting it by, shopping these.
Yeah, just playing a game.
And we can draw more people at the tractor show than we can in downtown.
That's the truth. I always go over to the tractor show, and There's always a bigger crowd there than there is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
How many
It is,
tractors
and
was
that's
there last year?
wonderful.
Oh, there was like 300.
I was gonna say, there was a lot of tractors last year.
Next time they have, but then they're having, you know, stuff for kids, and they're doing this, and they're doing that. They have no reason to cross the tracks and come over and buy the Japanese blow-up bats and whatever else. You know, give them a reason.
Is it more young people that are going to the tractor show, or
It's all ages.
all ages?
It's
And
all
families.
ages.
Well, see, I
Yeah,
was,
families.
something that she was hitting on there earlier about, having maybe a merchant day, and then we are also talking about, getting the kids involved. How can we take old fashioned days and without losing, the roots where old fashioned days come from, make it more 20-something friendly, where they want to come, whether it be tractor pools or something like that they're interested in. Honestly, I've got a 20-something-year-old too that he lives in Texas now, but when he was here, he didn't want to come down here and hear, my style of music that was playing the old Keith Whitley songs and people just walking around eating, a line of stuff or they didn't interest in. But stuff like tractor pulls or stuff like that the 20-somethings are interested in, it's exciting to them. Maybe we need to look in that direction.
You know, I think if you want to go to the community, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
We're planning an event in Pikeville, and they are doing wonderful things to draw people into Pikeville. They built their new conference center and stuff, but they're having muscles on Main. They're having, and there's 4 or 5 things every weekend of the month in the summer going on in Main Street that they're drawing people downtown.
Yeah.
And, and that's one of the things that drew Farm Bureau's Young Farmer Summer Outing to Pikeville is because they had things going on. Plus they had the facilities, but they had things going on downtown that could hold attention.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. My grandmother used to come to Old Fashioned Days to clog dance. She's not here anymore. Those folks are not here anymore. These teenagers, these 20-somethings, they don't care about that kind of stuff anymore. And like I said, without losing the heritage of what Old Fashioned Days really is, maybe we need to sit down and have a discussion about how to intertwine the Old Fashioned Days with some new cult kind of stuff that will attract these youngsters.
And we had that question, how do we keep our local culture alive and honor our heritage and make it important and give it value while being able to be progressive. Right. And to me, I see it as a lack of involvement from a variety of a demographic of people, because you've got to have people with ideas and the want to and the willingness to volunteer their time and skill and efforts to be on that planning committee.
So
who's on the planning committee? It's a very small group of people that are just trying to keep it alive.
Yeah. So we need to hit the streets and recruit.
We need
these
people that will volunteer.
I'm gonna lock this door, or fix the door that
Okay.
go out.
We need to finish too, so.
That's okay, you can take as long as you want.
Okay, so we can just shut everything down and walk out the door. And it's gonna lock
Just when you
behind
go
us.
out, you can't come back in.
Okay,
Somebody can let
we
you.
will make that decision. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, that's okay, thank you. Well, I don't want to keep you all night, and we have answered the questions that we have been directed to answer, and I thank you all for participating. If you would like to know about what everybody else in your chairs had to say, there will be a full report that is available from our county and as well as the other counties in Kentucky that have done this. And then how you can, if you would like to, you can see how that fits into the National Research Project as well. And I can let you be connected to that as it becomes available. So you have my contact information. And so again, thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts, because that's what it's all about. Yep. Thank you.